The rain was relentless, hammering the roof of the old cabin like a drum roll to my unraveling life. I woke to the sound of my own scream, heart pounding, only to find Theo's hand on my shoulder, his face inches from mine, eyes wide with panic. "Elliot, you okay?" he whispered, his voice cutting through the storm's chaos. But all I could think was, what the hell just happened? I wasn't okay. Not after what I'd felt in the haze of sleep. A fleeting touch, a warmth that wasn't mine, a moment that shattered the fragile line between us. Theo, my best friend since we were kids running wild in Portland's suburbs, had always been the straight guy who didn't care that I was gay. He'd laugh off my crushes, tease me about my hopeless romantic heart, and still be the first to throw an arm around me when life got heavy. But tonight, in this creaky cabin we'd rented for a weekend escape in Oregon's Willamette Valley, something had shifted. I couldn't unfeel it. The brush of his fingers on my chest while I slept, the way his breath hitched when I stirred. It wasn't a dream. It was real, and it was terrifying. Theo pulled back, his hand retreating like he'd touched fire. The dim glow of the lantern cast shadows across his face, sharp jawline, dark curls falling into his hazel eyes, the faintest flush on his cheeks. At 25, he was the kind of guy who turned heads without trying, all easy charm and quiet strength. Me? I was Elliot Harper, the lanky black guy with a knack for overthinking, my heart always a little too loud for my own good. We'd been inseparable for a decade, surviving high school bullies, family drama, and my coming out at 17. Theo had been my rock, the one who punched a guy for calling me a slur, the one who stayed up all night when my dad left. But this was uncharted. "Bad dream?" he asked, his voice too casual, like he was trying to erase whatever I'd just felt. I nodded, not trusting my mouth to form words. My skin still burned where his hand had been, and my mind replayed the moment. Me, half asleep on the couch, him kneeling beside me, his touch lingering longer than it should have. I wanted to ask, why were you touching me? What does it mean? But the words stuck in my throat, heavy as the storm outside. The cabin was small, just a single room with a sagging couch, a wood stove, and a loft where Theo had been sleeping. We'd come here to unplug, to hike and drink cheap beer and pretend the world wasn't so damn complicated. I was fresh off a breakup with Marcus, a guy who'd ghosted me after 6 months of I love yous. Theo had suggested this trip, saying I needed to clear my head. Now, my head was anything but clear. I sat up, the blanket slipping to my waist. "What time is it?" I mumbled, trying to anchor myself in something normal. Theo glanced at his phone. 3 a.m. "You were, thrashing around. Thought you were having a nightmare." His eyes darted away, and I knew he was lying. Theo was a terrible liar, always had been. His left eyebrow twitched when he wasn't telling the whole truth, and it was twitching now. I should have called him out. I should have asked why his hand was on me, why he'd been so close I could smell the cedar and mint of his shampoo. But I didn't. Instead, I said, "Yeah, must have been a dream." Because what if I was wrong? What if I'd imagined it, and confronting him would ruin everything? Our friendship was the one constant in my life, the one thing I couldn't afford to lose. The next morning, the storm had cleared, leaving the forest dripping and alive. Theo was already up, frying eggs on the camp stove like nothing had happened. "Sleep okay after that?" he asked, not looking at me. I nodded, sipping coffee that tasted like regret. The air felt thick, not just with the dampness of the woods, but with all the things we weren't saying. I watched him move, confident, carefree, the Theo I'd always known, and wondered if I'd misread everything. Maybe it was just a moment, a glitch in our friendship's code. But deep down, I knew better. Something had changed, and I wasn't sure I was ready for what came next. We hiked to the river that afternoon, the trail winding through pines that smelled like Christmas. Theo led the way, his backpack bouncing, his laughter echoing when he slipped on a muddy patch. "You're supposed to catch me, Elliot," he teased, and I forced a grin, my chest tight. Every time he looked at me, I searched his eyes for answers, but they gave nothing away. We reached a clearing by the water, a wooden bench overlooking the rapids. I sat, and Theo joined me, close enough that our knees brushed. My heart stuttered. "Remember when we used to skip rocks at Lake Oswego?" he said, picking up a flat stone. "You were terrible at it." I laughed, the memory loosening the knot in my chest. "Yeah, and you cheated by picking the flattest ones." He grinned, tossing the stone, and for a moment, it was just us, Elliot and Theo, best friends, uncomplicated. But then he turned to me, his expression softening. "You're okay, right? After Marcus and all." I swallowed, caught off guard. "Getting there," I said. "Just hurts, you know." He nodded, his hand resting on the bench, inches from mine. I wanted to close the gap, to feel his warmth again, but I didn't. Instead, I stared at the river, its current relentless, pulling everything downstream. Like my feelings for Theo, it was unstoppable, dangerous, and bound to carry me somewhere I couldn't come back from. That night, we built a fire outside the cabin. The stars were sharp, the air crisp. Theo handed me a beer, his fingers brushing mine, and I froze. It was the second time in 24 hours his touch had lingered, and this time, he didn't pull away. "Elliot," he said, his voice low, "there's something I need to tell you." My heart stopped. I knew, in that moment, that whatever he said next would change everything, and I wasn't sure I was ready to hear it. Theo's words hung in the air like smoke, curling around us as the fire crackled. I gripped my beer bottle, the cold glass grounding me as I braced for whatever he was about to say. His hazel eyes flickered with something I'd never seen before. Fear, maybe, or something deeper, something that made my stomach twist. "I've been thinking a lot lately," he started, his voice barely above a whisper. "About us. About me." He looked away, the firelight painting shadows across his face. I wanted to scream, just say it. But my throat was tight, my heart a drumbeat in my chest. Theo wasn't the type to get serious like this. He was the guy who'd blast music to drown out awkward silences, who'd joke his way through anything heavy. This was different. This was real. I leaned forward, the bench creaking under me. "What about you?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. He rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous habit I'd seen 1,000 times. "I don't know how to say this without sounding like an idiot," he said, then laughed, but it was hollow. "Last night, when you were sleeping, I wasn't trying to freak you out. He stopped, his jaw tightening. "I couldn't stop looking at you." My breath caught. The world narrowed to the space between us, the fire's warmth a faint echo compared to the heat in my chest. "What do you mean?" I asked, though I already knew. I'd felt it. The weight of his gaze, the brush of his hand. But hearing it from him was like stepping off a cliff. "I don't know what I'm doing, Elliot," he said, his voice raw. I'm not." He gestured vaguely, like he could wave away the confusion. "I've always been straight. Always. But with you, it's different. It's always been different." He looked at me then, and his eyes were a storm. Vulnerable, searching, desperate for me to understand. I couldn't speak. My mind was a tangle of hope and fear, love and doubt. Theo was my best friend, the guy who'd dated girls like Sarah and Mia, who'd rolled his eyes at my sappy love stories. But here he was, saying things I'd only let myself dream about in the quiet corners of my heart. I wanted to believe him, but I'd been burned before. Marcus had said he loved me, then vanished. What if Theo was just confused? What if this broke us? "Say something," he pleaded, his voice cracking. I set my beer down, my hands shaking. "Theo, you can't just say that and expect me to know what to do with it." My voice was sharper than I meant, but the hurt was spilling out. "You're straight. You've always been straight. And now you're telling me you're what?" Questioning. Curious? "What does this mean for us?" He flinched, like I'd slapped him. I don't know, he admitted. I just know I've been feeling this for a while, and last night, I couldn't hold it back anymore. I saw you sleeping, and I wanted to be close to you. I'm sorry if I crossed a line. I stood, pacing to the edge of the firelight, the forest swallowing the edges of my vision. You don't get it, I said, turning to face him. You don't get to just try this with me. I'm not an experiment, Theo. I've been in love with you for years, and I've buried it because I knew it'd never happen. And now you're saying this, and it's messing with my head. The words slipped out before I could stop them, raw and unfiltered. Theo's eyes widened, his mouth parting like he'd been punched. You're in love with me? He whispered, like it was a revelation he hadn't dared to imagine. I laughed bitterly, running a hand over my face. Yeah, Theo. And it's been killing me, because you're my best friend, and I can't lose you. But this might ruin everything. He stood, closing the distance between us, his boots crunching on the forest floor. Elliot, I'm not trying to ruin anything. I'm trying to figure this out. I'm scared too, okay? I've never felt like this about a guy. Hell, I've never felt like this about anyone. His hand reached for mine, hesitant, then stopped. I don't want to lose you either. The air was heavy, the fire's glow fading as the logs burned low. I looked at him, really looked, and saw the Theo I'd always known, but also someone new. Someone who was breaking open, just like me. Then what do we do? I asked, my voice barely audible. He shook his head, a small, helpless smile tugging at his lips. I don't know, but I want to find out. With you. We didn't kiss. We didn't fall into each other's arms like some movie. Instead, we sat back down, side by side, the silence heavy but not empty. The forest hummed around us, alive with possibility and fear. I wanted to believe him, to let myself hope, but the weight of what we'd just admitted pressed down on me. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about who we were, who we could be, and what we were willing to risk. The next day, we hiked again, but the air between us was different, charged, fragile, like a glass sculpture waiting to shatter. Theo was quieter, his usual jokes replaced by thoughtful glances. We stopped at a waterfall, the mist cooling our skin. You ever think about leaving Portland? He asked suddenly, tossing a pebble into the spray. Starting over somewhere new? I frowned, caught off guard. Sometimes, I said. Why? He shrugged, but his eyes were distant. Just wondering what it'd be like. To be someone else. To not have to explain this. He gestured between us, and my heart sank. Was he already regretting it? Was this his way of pulling back? Theo, I said, stepping closer. If you're freaking out, just say it. Don't leave me guessing. He met my gaze, his expression raw. I'm not freaking out, he said. I don't know how to do this, Elliot. But I want to try. For you. For us. I wanted to believe him. God, I did. But as we stood there, the waterfall roaring behind us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the edge of something bigger than either of us could handle. And I wasn't sure we'd both make it to the other side. Back at the cabin, the tension between us was a living thing, curling in the corners of the room like smoke. We cooked dinner in silence, the clink of pots and the sizzle of onions the only sounds. Theo kept stealing glances at me, and every time our eyes met, my heart did a traitor's flip. I wanted to grab him, shake him, ask him to be sure, because I wasn't. I'd spent years hiding my feelings for him, and now that they were out, I felt exposed, like a nerve laid bare. After dinner, we sat on the porch, the night air cool against my skin. Theo broke the silence first. I told my sister about you, he said, his voice soft. I turned, surprised. His sister, Lena, was a no-nonsense nurse who lived in Seattle. What did you tell her? I asked, my throat tight. He leaned back, staring at the stars. That I'm confused. That I care about you more than I've ever cared about anyone. And it's freaking me out because it's not simple. He paused, then looked at me. She said I should be honest with you. So here I am, Elliot. I'm trying. My chest ached. Theo, this isn't just about you being honest. It's about what happens next. If we do this, whatever this is, it's not just a fling. Not for me. I've loved you for too long for that. My voice broke, and I hated how vulnerable I sounded, but I couldn't stop. And if you're not sure, if you decide this isn't you, it'll break me. He reached for my hand then, his fingers warm and steady. I'm not going anywhere, he said, his voice fierce. I don't have all the answers, but I know I want you in my life. Not just as my friend, as more. His thumb brushed over my knuckles, and I felt it everywhere. My heart, my skin, my soul. We stayed like that, hands clasped, the night wrapping around us. For the first time, I let myself imagine it. Us, together, not just as friends, but as something real. But the fear was still there, whispering that this could end in ashes. Theo wasn't out. He wasn't even sure what he was. And I'd seen what happened when love wasn't enough. My parents' divorce, Marcus's betrayal. I couldn't survive that with Theo. The next morning, we packed up to head back to Portland. The drive was quiet, the radio filling the gaps with indie rock. Theo's hand rested on the gear shift, and I kept glancing at it, wanting to reach out but afraid to break the fragile truce we'd built. When we stopped for gas in a small town, I noticed a group of guys at the station, their stares lingering too long. One muttered something, and Theo tensed, his hand clenching the pump. I knew that look, protective, defiant, the same one he'd worn when we were kids and someone messed with me. Ignore them, I said, my voice low. But Theo's jaw was set, and when one of the guys laughed, he stepped closer to me, his shoulder brushing mine. It was subtle, but it felt like a statement. Like he was choosing me, even if he didn't fully understand what that meant. Back in Portland, reality hit hard. Theo had a job at a brewery, pouring beers and charming customers. I worked at a community center, running art programs for kids. Our lives were tangled, but separate, and I wasn't sure how to bridge the gap. That night, he came over to my apartment, a cramped one-bedroom in southeast Portland. We ordered pizza, watched a bad sci-fi movie, and for a while, it felt normal. But when the credits rolled, Theo didn't leave. He sat on my couch, his knee bouncing, and said, "Can I stay?" My heart stopped. Like stay the night? I asked, my voice careful. He nodded, his eyes locked on mine. Not just tonight. I mean, I want to try this, Elliot. Us. For real. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to leap into his arms, but the other part, the part that had been hurt before, was screaming to slow down. Theo, this is big, I said. You're not out. Your family, your friends, they don't know. And I can't be your secret. He flinched, but he didn't look away. I know, he said. I'm not asking you to hide. I just need time to figure out how to do this. But I'm in, Elliot. I'm all in. We didn't sleep together that night, not like that. But he stayed, curled up next to me on my too small bed, his arm draped over my waist. It was the most intimate moment of my life, and also the most terrifying, because I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. The world wasn't kind to people like us, and Theo was stepping into a life he'd never known. I didn't know if he was ready, or if I was. Weeks passed, and Theo and I stumbled into something that felt like a relationship, but it wasn't easy. He was trying. God, he was trying, but every step forward came with a cost. He told his sister first, and Lena was supportive, asking to meet me officially over coffee. But his parents were another story. When he hinted at someone special during a family dinner, his dad's face hardened, and his mom changed the subject. Theo came to my place after, his eyes red, and I held him as he admitted how much it hurt. The world outside wasn't much kinder. Portland was progressive, but not everywhere. We got looks when we held hands at a farmer's market, and once, a guy at Theo's brewery made a crude joke when he saw us together. Theo shut it down, his voice sharp, but I saw the toll it took. He was learning what I'd known for years. Loving someone like me came with a price. Still, there were moments of beauty. Late nights on my balcony, sharing a blanket and talking about everything. Our fears, our dreams, the life we wanted. Theo started opening up about his confusion, how he'd never questioned his sexuality until me. "You're the exception," he said one night, his head on my shoulder. "Or maybe you're the rule, and I've been wrong about myself all along." I kissed him then, our first real kiss, and it was like the world remade itself. Soft, fierce, perfect. But perfection doesn't last. A month later, Theo's old friend Jake came to town. Jake was loud, brash, the kind of guy who'd always made me feel small. We met at a bar, and when Theo introduced me as his boyfriend, Jake's smile faltered. Later, I overheard him corner Theo in the bathroom. "You're not serious, man," Jake said. "You're not that guy." Theo's voice was steady when he replied, "I am. And if you can't handle it, that's your problem." I wanted to cheer, but the look on Theo's face when he came back, haunted, tired, told me how much it cost him. The breaking point came at a brewery event. Theo's boss, a laid-back guy named Greg, invited us both. I was nervous, but Theo insisted I come. "I want you there," he said. "I want everyone to know." So I went, and for a while, it was fine. Music, laughter, Theo's arm around me. But then a drunk customer started mouthing off, calling us names I won't repeat. Theo stepped in front of me, his fists clenched, but I pulled him back. "It's not worth it," I said, my voice shaking. He listened, but I could see the anger in his eyes, the weight of a world he wasn't ready for. That night, back at my place, Theo broke down. "I don't know if I'm strong enough for this," he admitted, his voice raw. "I love you, Elliot, but this, being out, dealing with all this hate, it's so much." My heart shattered, but I understood. I'd lived this life. He was new to it, and love alone couldn't shield him from the world's cruelty. I took his face in my hands. "You don't have to do this alone," I said. "But you have to choose it, Theo. All of it. Because I can't do halfway." He nodded, tears in his eyes, and kissed me, a kiss that felt like a promise and a goodbye all at once. The next morning, Theo was gone. A note on my counter read, "I need time to figure myself out. I love you. I'm sorry." I stood there, the paper trembling in my hands, and felt the world tilt. I'd known this might happen, but it didn't hurt any less. Months later, I got a letter. Theo was in Seattle, living with Lena, working at a new brewery. He was seeing a therapist, trying to understand himself. "I'm not giving up," he wrote. "I just need to be whole before I can be with you." I cried reading it, but not just from pain. There was hope there, too, a fragile, stubborn hope. I still love him. I probably always will. But I've learned something through all this. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice, a fight, a promise to show up, even when it's hard. Theo's figuring out how to make that choice, and I'm learning to live with the uncertainty. Our friendship, our love, will never be the same, but maybe that's okay. Maybe it's better. Because through the pain, we found something real, something worth fighting for. And one day, I believe we'll find our way back to each other.